Thank you, thank you. Well, when I first heard the theme, opening into expansion, I believe is what you said, opening to expansion. Of course, my mind went to all the silly places that one's mind goes with those kinds of themes, and that is, I've been expanding for years, I'm here to prove it. And expansion means lots of different things. Sometimes you get stretch marks when you expand too quickly, and sometimes you just expand and everything flows with ease, with power, and with goodness. So as I thought about the theme, I immediately started hearing an old song in my head that I hadn't thought about in many years. And it's already inspired some of you to pull out your Baptist roots. Since I got here, we were doing Baptist something or other during the opening gathering treatment. It was an old song that we did at a campfire, and it went like this. Deep and wide, there's a fountain flowing deep and wide. Now, the second verse was equally deep in its meaning. In fact, the true meaning comes out in the second verse, which goes wide and deep, there's a fountain flowing wide and deep. So the whole thing, wide and deep and wide, and we had motions that went to it, and we did all this fun stuff with it, and you'd sing it fast, and you'd sing it slow, and we'd sing it, and I don't know if anyone ever really got what it meant, if it had any meaning at all to begin with. Except that we live in the flow of this amazing fountain of life that is flowing to us and through us, and it has great depth and great width at the same time. Just like me, I'm tall and wide. It's a good thing. You know, and yet it's a profound truth. Because if we're going to expand, if we're going to grow, if we're going to be open to the greater, it's really important that we're open to it in a way that is balanced, in a way that takes us deep and takes us wide at the same time. Because to do one or the other is to get pretty lopsided. I don't know if you've ever done any of those self-help things where you do a scale of your life. How's your life in this area, in this area, in this area, in this area, and then at the end, you draw a circle to those numbers. And if you're really balanced, you have a nice wheel. Just like he talked about, or just like you talked about in the readings. Life is about circle, and power travels in circles. But if it's like my life usually is, it's pretty lopsided, and I'd hate to try to drive on that thing. Because it's flat on one side, or it's got sharp edges, or it's got straight lines instead of curves. And I think for most of us, we live live our lives working with those circles and working to round ourselves out in the fullness of depth as well as width, so that they match. So that your life it transforms from being a wheel to being a sphere that goes deep and reaches high and that goes far out at the same time. My purpose here today is to get us to think a little about this business of the depth of awareness, of that going deep within us, going deep into the awareness of the most important idea you can have. And that is your idea of infinite power. Your idea of God, if you please. That is the most important, because that idea shapes everything else you do. Everything else you do and think. Consciously and unconsciously both. What you believe about power determines how you move through life. If you believe you live in a safe world that is here to support you, in a universe that is always saying yes, in a life that says this is for you and you can have it, whatever you believe you deserve, you have a very different experience than if you live in a world that is dangerous. If you live in a world where you have to suffer, where you have to work and pay taxes, and then you die and they throw dirt in your face. It's a different life. It's a different experience. It's a different way to be. And it's all about what you believe about power and your relationship to it. That's the depth piece. The width piece is all about how do we do in the world around us? How are we with other people? Do I see the other as other? Do I see them as them and somehow separate? Dr. Holmes in the textbook says that our best way of viewing other people, our deepest, most profound way in the oneness, is to see everyone else as your alter ego. Wow. See, I have an alter ego that's just drop dead gorgeous. You know? She's got long blonde hair and blue eyes. And I have another one that's a street person that lives on the street and begs for food. Doesn't know the richness of the universe for him. And everything else in between. If we see the world as an expression of ourselves and us as an expression of it, then our compassion grows and grows and grows. And all of a sudden we're not alone in the world anywhere, ever. It's a different life. If we see them as the enemy, people we have to either protect ourselves from, contain, or seduce, then we've got another different world altogether that we live in. So I'm inviting you today to just kind of think about where are you in this whole business of living deep and wide? Maybe you have one part of it a little more than the other. It's kind of like the difference in our thinking and our thought and our feeling and what we do. Sometimes there's a gap there. Rarely as much of a gap as we think. It's usually just what we're doing reflects what we really think, and we aren't aware of our thoughts as well. Dr. Holmes talks about vision. Vision is one of those areas of depth in our souls, in our hearts, in our lives. Here's what he said. I think it goes with the deep and wide idea. He says, work without vision is drudgery. You know the old story, the guys who were building a cathedral, the stonemasons, and someone came up to them, a young apprentice, and said, what are you doing? The guy says, well, I'm cutting stones and feeding my family. Goes to the next one and says, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm making sure these get cut in just the right way so they fit together and so that, I have a good day's work and I feel good about myself. I'm doing something creative. And he goes to the third guy that's been there the longest, or maybe gal, there could be girl stone cutters, and he says, well, I'm building a cathedral. What are you doing? I'm building a cathedral. See, and it's a difference in whether we see it as a vision or we see it just as the drudgery of what we're doing every day. So work without vision is drudgery. But, this speaks to you, Reverend Julie. Only in the moment it passes. Vision without work, no, this one doesn't speak to you, this one later. Never mind. Vision without work is self-deception. Have you ever done that where you've been to visionings and you vision all this fabulous, amazing stuff? We visioned a lot in Paoli, and it was wonderful, and we put feet to the vision. But there were times when we had these visions of things that were just way outrageously out there. And if we had started to act as if those were ours, I think our lives would have been very different. But what it did do is it opened things up so we could go bigger and better and greater as we opened to the possibility of the vision. But the vision without work is self-deception. A well-balanced person, this goes to you. A well-balanced person walks with her head in the clouds and still keeps her feet firmly planted on the ground. Now, we all know we love those times when our feet aren't on the ground. I love to be out floating around the universe thinking about all this stuff. But on Monday morning or Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, there's still, I got to have my feet on the ground. Because, see, our job is bringing all of that into form, into relationship, into reality, into the thing itself. Bringing that wonderful spiritual awareness that we have, those great visions, right down into our everyday lives, into the earth herself. And so we do that by going deep and wide. We go deep. You know the standard answers to that. You know how to go deep. You meditate, right? You meditate. You contemplate. Or you do what I do a lot of, which is metaplate. And it's not about food. It's metaplate. What that means to me is that I get into a meditative state and I contemplate the ideas of life and of my life. And I contemplate what's good, what's expanded, what's wonderful. What about my life is so rich and full and free? And I love being in that place. And inevitably, you have that other little voice that creeps in and says, well, what about? You ever have that? Where you're in a nice meditative state and all of a sudden you start thinking about all that stuff that isn't working in your life? The flat side of the wheel? Well, you can do two things with that. You can turn it into blaming yourself or someone else, which is one of my favorite things to do, but which doesn't really get me anywhere in terms of expanding my life. Or I can look at that and say, what is it in me? Where am I thinking and feeling and believing? What am I really believing in my heart and my soul of souls that I would never tell anyone else probably, that this could be a manifestation of? Now that's a slippery slope, because it's a short step from there to what's wrong with you. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm also not talking about that old thing you'll hear people say sometimes around centers, well, what's in your consciousness, which is about as, not helpful at all. But what I can do in that contemplation is I can look at and start with the idea that there's only one power and it's all God and it's all good and it always says yes to my consciousness and to my beliefs and to who and what I'm about. And then I can ask myself the question, so what is this experience saying yes to? Do I really believe I can be healthy? Do I really believe in my soul of souls that there is something bigger and greater than germs and toxins? Are germs really, really the controller of the universe, of my universe? I mean, think about it. How much power do we give to germs? And we can't even see the little silly things. When I was a kid, you probably heard it too, we always talked about cooties. Other people had cooties. Nobody ever saw a cootie. Nobody knew what it was. But boy, did we give it power. You couldn't sit with certain people in the lunchroom because he had cooties. I asked my mother what that was, and she didn't know. Nobody knew. See, we make up all this stuff in our heads that we give power to, and we believe in, and they become the reality of our lives, and we don't even know what they are or what they're based on. So since it's all theory anyway, why not believe in a power for good in the universe that is greater than you are, that you can use to create the life of your dreams? Why not believe in a power greater than you are, a power in the universe greater than you are, that can use you to create the life of your dreams? To support you in getting your bloated nothingness out of the way and going deep into the divine circuits within you to find that place where life lives full and free and good. We're making it all up anyway. Why not? So we go deep. We go deep into those ideas, those possibilities, those creative thoughts. We meditate. We explore what we believe. We explore the oneness. It's a fun exercise. It's easier to do for other people because you always know what's going on with them, right? To make up in your mind, where's the oneness in this situation? Not I demand to fix it, but I demand to see the good. I demand to know what there is to be known about this. And that's the wide part. That's the wide part, because our compassion and our love reaches out to the world. When we see other people as our alter egos, not as the other, the separate, the different, the weird, the strange. When we step past my God is greater than your God, and see every person as an expression of God, living their lives according to their understanding of God. Honoring it, recognizing it, loving it. Yeah, wow. See, the only real power there is in the universe is love. All this other stuff we talk about, that's what runs everything. That's what is in the very essence of our physical selves and what holds matter together and creates the appearance of matter, at least. It's love. So the power we have to reach out to wider is the power to love. And if you run into somebody or something you can't love, I double dog dare you to find a way to do it. To look at what's in me that is not loving myself, that is being reflected in this thing I see out there that I'm not loving. Could be the Republicans. Could be the Democrats. Could be the current president or the last president. Or those people across the water who don't like us and that we don't like. Am I willing to look past all of that and see where is that a reflection of my lack of love of myself? What about all those parts of me that I've thrown away because I don't want them? I don't like them. I don't love them. Of course, they don't really go away. They just kind of hang out and whisper in your ear every so often or show up in front of you in the form of your best friend or your best enemy. Reaching wide is learning to love that wider, larger, bigger place. It's where the real power is, out there. It's the truth. To look at the world through the eyes of truth, not the eyes of rhetoric. The morning newspaper, if anybody still gets those, is really a call to prayer. It's really a call to say, see beyond this dualistic, us and them, right or wrong, fear-mongering nonsense that's put on our tables every day and on our TV screens. See beyond that to that deeper truth that there's a powerful good in the universe that's at work here. And the only reason all this stuff looks so bad right now is because it's starting to collapse into a bigger and greater way of knowing and being in our universe and in our world. We are rapidly going towards critical mass, where those of us who understand there is only one power, and it is love, it is life, it is God, and everyone has a right to live it and use it and be it. We're reaching critical mass where that is becoming the louder voice. And as it does, the old voice of dualism, the old voice of fight, the old voice of us and them is hanging on and screaming louder. I mean, what do you do when you're hanging on for dear life? You don't say, would someone come help me here, please? No. We yell louder and harder. Our anger rises up to try and push the energy forward to make something happen that we know isn't going to, or doesn't appear to. And so the world looks a lot worse for a while, until we crack open our hearts into a new place and a new way to be. And we're part of that voice of the new, if we choose to be. We can also use this teaching to be the voice of the old by determining that we have the only answer. And if you don't speak religious science, then you're not really spiritual. You know? I do think this is the best answer. So far, I wouldn't be standing here. I'd be wherever else I thought the best answer is. But I'm not ready to make anyone else wrong because they don't yet understand this, or they don't get it, or they may never. My mother thinks I've gone to hell because I've joined in on this strange cult. My mother talks to Jesus every day. And when the hurricanes come through Florida, like they did a few years ago, where they were having them back-to-back, and the whole state was trying to run to Montana or somewhere to hide because they just couldn't get away from them. My mom has big plate glass windows all over her house. She sat in her living room and watched the storms blow by, rocking in her rocking chair, saying, well, Jesus already told me I'm protected, no problem. Houses next to her fall down, trees blow down, things break. Her plate glass windows are just fine. A few little limbs from her trees fall in the yard. It's her faith that does it. It's that faith with works, that faith with trust. And whether you put Jesus' name on it, or Ernest Holmes and Science of Mind and the Power of Oneness, it's the belief system that makes the difference and the love. So go deep and wide. Go deep, deep, deep and wide. Deep in your connection with Spirit within you. Wide in your love of others as you would love yourself. See, the truth is we can't love anyone else more than we love ourselves. That idea that we can is a codependent nonsense. So if you're finding folks out there you're not loving, it's because there's some more loving you need to do of you. If you see someone angry with you all the time, that's your anger coming back at you to show you, because it's a oneness. Otherwise, we got two powers going on. So I invite you, as you open to expand, that you go deep and you go wide. And I want to leave you with this last quote. And this is from Dr. Holmes commenting on Emerson. And he says, a person is complete. He actually says a man is complete, but I've expanded it to person. Because otherwise I'd have to say man and goddesses. So in order to balance things, we're just going to say people. A person is complete when she strikes a balance between intellect and spiritual qualities. Emerson's great theme, according to Dr. Holmes, is this: lay bare the soul, that undersoul, that presence of God and Spirit in everything. Loose the Spirit. Let it go. Let it get in the world and go to work for you. Set your intention. Know your desires. Build your consciousness to support those desires and those visions. Find the cause. Meditate. Above all, be yourself. I mean, who else can you be? Emerson also said that, imitation is suicide, because you have to kill off yourself to be like anyone else. Live your life and trust in the integrity of the universe. That one took a long time for me. I had experiences and ideas about God that said God was punishing. That the universe was not something to be trusted. That if I surrendered, then I would be surrendering to some horrible thing I didn't want to do. Or go some horrible place I didn't want to be. Or something of that sort. The truth is, surrendering to the power that the universe is and acknowledging its integrity simply opens life up to be the best it can possibly be for any one of us. And the truth is, you deserve an expanded life. Expanded in whatever area you imagine for yourself. You deserve it. And as Emma Curtis Hopkins says, it's my good, I deserve it, and I demand to have it. And there is nothing and no one holding it back from you. It's because you're wonderful, and so am I, and so it is. Thank you.